What's that? Who there? Whoa.
And so for our world, we're all about creatives, whether you're into photography or filmmaking or design. And so building a marketplace for creatives, run by creatives, that's how I think at the moment.
Yeah. And so, one of the many things that I wanted to ask you was, you started out building your own products, right? You built the case and the external lenses, but quickly you shifted to, all right, we're going to be a marketplace. We're going to be like,
not that quick, but
yeah, not that quick, but
yeah,
it seems
it's a little bit unique route, right? Most people start as a retailer or marketplace, then they make products. So like REI would be a good example. They start as a retailer, now they make REI branded products. We're flipping that. That's a unique direction, but that can be a struggle as a company, right? Because whatever you come out with first, people brand you that way, right? They think of you that way. And so it even took years people not to call us Moment Lens because the lens was the first product, right? That's how they attached the name Moment. And so you have brand wise, you have to give yourself time to evolve there, but kind of a natural progression, which is, hey, we started with some products, got feedback from our customers. We were trying to figure out what worked to get a customer, right? So we tried all kinds of things. And the thing that actually really worked was the content. So really YouTube as a channel became our number one channel, ironically. And in there, people started asking us, what other gear do you use? What other things do you recommend? So we started putting those in our videos. And then people started asking us, where can I buy these? So we started selling those products, right? So we've kind of organically evolved to the marketplace. Now that's definitely where our North Star is now. But we pretty much follow from a customer point of view. What are they interested in? What are their pain points? What can we solve? And then we've moved from kind of a marketplace business or a product only business to a blended marketplace business.
Yeah. I think sometimes CEOs will like overthink it, over strategize, and they'll try to like plan out these 10-year roadmaps when in reality, it sounds like what you did, you just listened to the customer and community that you had and then just kept giving them what they wanted, right? And built a business around it.
It's just what we teach too. So a lot of it is, maybe if you look what we came out of Contour with, we were pretty good at understanding customer needs and what were the pain points and how to solve them. So culturally, we try to teach that a lot. So we try to understand what are the customer pain points. We use a thing called customer journey. So we look at kind of before, during, and after. In the beginning, it was before, during, and after taking a picture on your phone, right? And over time, it's evolved to before, during, and after for creative. So before they get the gear, where are they shopping? What do they need help with, right? While they've got their gear, getting it set up, how can we help, right? After they've got their gear set up, what do they need? So that kind of before, during, and after tool is something we use all the time. And it helps you figure out what problems would you focus on first, second, third, et cetera.
Yeah. So this idea of it's a little buzzy, but the creator economy is booming right now. And you guys have solved a lot of the, initial core pain points for those types of people that are creating. I'm curious, what are your thoughts around what are they still missing? Like what is the at-home creator, or not even at home, but what do they still want that there's kind of a gap in the market still around?
Yeah. For Moments Hall being the most personable place, that's kind of the intersection we focus on. So there's kind of two sides for us. One is the consumer, right? Hey, we find people want recommendations and help. What should I get? Why should I get it? Help me get it set up. Teach me some new skills, right? Let me get more out of my products. If it's photo video, it's definitely new skills. If it's my studio, it's set up and what do you recommend? And what kind of accessories do I need? So that's from a consumer point of view, we'll constantly be helping more and more customers. And we're seeing people kind of evolve from, I started in photography. Now I'm shooting at home. I got a little studio. I got to set up. Now I'm working remote. I need some product for that. So the customer thread is pretty consistent, which is helping them find the right gear and teaching them how to use it. The other side we've seen come a lot is the creators. So we call it kind of creator-powered commerce. But the creators are looking to grow their businesses. And so I think that's pretty unique. And so there we're trying to help service in a variety of ways. So right now we help creators actually make things. So we're actually making their courses, producing them, et cetera. We've been making their trips if they need help putting their kind of trips and workshops together. We've even started making them products you'll see come out this year. And then we also help them with selling. So they might have existing trips we're selling. You'll see us expand to kind of LUTs, presets, books. But we kind of have two customers really focus on: the end consumer who's buying and needs help, and actually creatives and helping them expand their revenue streams.
Yeah, you guys got your hands in a lot. It sounds like there's kind of a natural progression almost to becoming like the Shopify for that, right? Like being able to help people, and maybe you don't want to be the website builder, but like you are.
No, it's more of a service. Yeah, it's more of a service model, right? So right now we're seeing creators have a lot of tools, lots of tools, right?
Yeah, too many tools.
And at the end of the day, they're like a creator who has no more time to set up tools. So we very much focused on a service layer for them. But yeah, we're trying to go vertically. We're trying to say, hey, the community of creatives is a really big business. I mean, we'll see if that's true. I think the biggest company doing this is Adobe. If you look at Adobe's business, a lot of creatives, and they built a very big business serving creatives. So that's kind of our North Star is, how Adobe has served creatives.
Yeah, I love that. So I want to shift back to the Kickstarter piece because, I was always thinking I've never launched anything personally on Kickstarter, but I feel like it's still very underrated. Like why would any hardware company not go Kickstarter or Indiegogo? Because it seems from the outside like you have almost no downside, right? Like you put the time in initially to put the campaign together, but you're able to test what customers actually want before you commit any capital, resources, et cetera. And I know you guys hammered this, and there's a lot of companies, Peak Design, Wander, that are doing this in kind of the camera creator space. But why don't walk me through first of all what you think the best ways to get the best kind of squeeze of the lemon when you do Kickstarter, and why don't more people do it consistently?
Yeah, we think of it less of a platform and more how do you crowdfund or from your customers demand before you have to ship it. And so logistically, we really needed those platforms or that kind of model because it's expensive, right? We don't have the cash to tool everything. And, when you buy something or make something, you have to make order minimum of like 5,000 of something. So you don't have the cash to do it. And so the mechanics of being able to ask customers if they're interested in a sense, pre-sell that has got a huge amount of benefits. Logistically, it has big cash benefits, which actually lets you bring that idea to market, lets you stretch a little bit, make something maybe harder than you could just to see if there's demand. It also helps you because you learn how to market and sell it much earlier. That's usually a challenge is you put the product out and then you have to learn how to market and sell it. And the benefit of crowdfunding much earlier or pre-orders, whatever you want to call it, is you have to learn to sell and market it immediately.
Yeah, before you even have it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we started with crowdfunding. I think, it's a little bit different before than now. It's turned more into e-commerce. Before, people were very much interested in the story. Like, why did you do it? I'm believing in the group. And unfortunately, all that romantic side of it has gone away. I don't know if that's the Amazon culture that's been created, like I want it yesterday, or people have been burned too much. But I think the notion of pre-ordering has lost its luster from, a project to like, let's see if they make it.
Yeah.
It's turned more into where is my stuff? Why is it not here yet?
It's a lot more transactional now.
Unfortunately, yeah. But we still take usually one project a year. Usually it's the project we're trying to stretch on. We're not sure if there's demand for. Technically, the way Kickstarter is set up for a startup point of view, it does legally protect you because there are credit card rules for you doing it on your own site that can be challenging.
Okay. So when you think about the product mix, right, you had the hardware, the marketplace, you've got the film festival, the lessons, the service layer. You have a lot of different things. I'm curious when your approach to like experimentation on all these different verticals, are you having other people in the team? It's kind of an open culture and you're like, hey, if you have a good idea, like let's run an experiment around it and test it. Or a lot of these come in kind of top down. Like how do you run the organization?
Our risk is we're kind of going left to right while we're still small with the notion of if we build this stuff into these verticals, they'll become large businesses. So we think of Moment as let's say a bunch of little businesses, but we have structured in terms of little teams of 3 to 7. Everybody likes to run companies differently. I like little cross teams of 3 to 7. At 7 people, that's too much for one person to lead. So we kind of split them into a new team. And so if you look at each of those groups, they have something that they're owning, some revenue that they're driving, some costs that they're responsible for. And so that's how we think of it. If one of those isn't working, then we fold them together or shut it down. But we usually start pretty small with like, what's the most basic thing, learn, and go from there. We don't take a lot of, let's spend a year on something and hope the thing works. We do a lot more, let's try something for 3 to 5 or 3 to 6 months and get this up and going and see what happens.
Yeah, I love that approach. So on the flip side of everything, right? It's sad, but it seems like what listeners love the most is to hear like what doesn't work, like behind the curtain, like what's not working, where are the biggest bets that didn't pan out, or like where are the struggles. And so when you think about that, I'm sure a lot more early than later, but what are some of the things that come to mind?
And we haven't effed up too many. I mean, the things that get us right now in this business are like we crowdfund stuff. And so if we're late on something or logistic and shipping, that has kicked our ass for sure, which is like we get a product, it sells out. It takes us 3 or 4 months to get more, right? And we pre-ordered those and then customers get angry at us. That's been our biggest mistakes have been shipping, logistics, it's later, or this part came, but this other product didn't. That's hurt us the most. Culturally, I think to your earlier point of friends starting multiple companies, you do find the second and third company, the culture part is actually much easier. A kind of analogy is sports and coaching. So if you coach a team, you learn how to develop how you want to run a team. And I think for me, second time around, that is much clearer and much easier. First time around, I had no idea what I was doing. So the culture was pretty chaotic, right? So people were there for different reasons, right? Was a big thing. Some were there because we were into action sports. Some were there because they liked the product. Some were there for the startup run, right? Secondarily, didn't have any methodology about how I ran a team, how it communicated, the frequency it communicated, like how do we do anything, right? So when you look back, that team was a mixture of me learning, right? Every kind of age, every kind of demographic, every kind of experience set. They were there for different reasons, every kind of process people tried to create. So this time around, culturally, I think we've got a lot of those things right. That's just because I know I'm doing a little bit more.
Yeah. So let's pull on that a little bit. So I like to ask almost every person that comes on about hiring, and I have a few questions here. The first is, what do you look for is like an elementary question. Most people say like grit, determination, but I think the most important thing is how do you look for it? Like how do you run your interview process or your recruiting process to be able to differentiate between like surface level people who are trying to pretend like they have the thing you want and people who are actually to their core superstars?
We could talk for a couple hours on just recruiting. So the way we recruit everyone, we call it a project to hire model. And so what we found is that traditional interviewing is very hard. It's almost near impossible to tell if someone's any good. And so we'll end up putting a role up. We'll get that down to a handful that we'll talk to. And I'll come back to like what we filter for. We'll interview a handful of those, and then we'll give an actual project where it's a piece of work we've scoped. Usually it's maybe 10 to 15 hours of work they do. We pay them for their time, right? But as part of it, we throw them into Slack. They do it on their extra time, nights or weekends. But by the end of the project, they know, hey, am I a fit? Do I like this? And we know. And one of the biggest risks in hiring is it's very expensive to take the teams apart. So in startup world, that's probably your bigger cost. We hired somebody, it didn't work. I need to take that person out in a month or 3 months, and I have to start that search back over. So the project to hire model has helped us a lot, both in making sure we're getting the right people, gives the people joining a lot of confidence, like, oh yeah, this is absolutely correct. I'm glad I'm leaving my company for this. And it's helped a younger team kind of have process. So to have 3 projects, for example, you have to have some process, like document stuff and where are the logins and how do they access. And so it's helped the internal team see a lot of talent and have better process. I think that's been the breakthrough for us, is that process. When we look for actual people, we're kind of looking for basically 3 things. One is, are they into photography, filmmaking? Are they creative at all, right? Our business is built on top of an Instagram, a YouTube, et cetera. So if they're just not into that world, it's not a fit for us. I think at first company have missed that, right? We should have all been either into action sports or into some thread that was consistent. In our world, we look for people that are into creativity. It doesn't have to be good at it, but just have to be passionate about it in some way. If not, what you end up finding is you build your team and then you have to start spending time on getting people to use the products because they're all there for the same reason. So that's the first thing we look for. We look for it in their social. We look for it in their application. We look for it if they have a dedicated website. So that's the first thing we're checking for. Second thing we look for is some form of raw talent. Like that's usually visual talent, or if it's Excel talent, or if their operations role, they're super organized. We kind of look for this raw talent and what they've applied for. And those are actually the main 2 things we look for. And then the thing we check for in the calls is, do they want to get better at what they do? That's the thing we can't teach. So when you have a younger culture or not a bunch of super senior people that can teach everybody, you need people that are obsessed with, I want to get better at what I do. So at the call level, we're kind of digging into that. What do you want to work on? What are you trying to get better at? And so that's the thread that we just can't teach. We can teach the process and how we play the game and how we communicate. But we can't teach that I want to be an awesome designer and I'm passionate about design. I want to get better at design. So those are the 3 things we kind of dig in for at the filter and the interview level. And then the project tells us everything. So I'd say 80, 90% of the interview is in the project. And in the project, we really narrow it down to what's the thing we need them to be awesome at. And so if you look at someone's role, we take that entire role and say, okay, of the whole role they're going to do, like what is the area we have to validate they are amazing at? That might be concepting a product. That might be, strategy around how they'd run ads. That might be, right, like how they run an Instagram channel. And we're just trying to focus the project into that single thing. And that's going to tell us a lot.
Yeah. I'm sure you've had people come in that just blow that little mini project out of the water. And you're like, when can you start, right? Like
some do. And it's interesting. It's been a good filter because basically we document this process. We give it to them before they do the project, right? And people either love it or hate it. So it has helped us to get people who love the concept and love kind of the open culture we've got. And some people look at it and go, hell no, I'm not doing any of that, right? So that's actually helped us to filter. And then, yeah, we've had some have been hits, some have been missed. Our hit rate is usually around 85, 90% of people that have joined, stayed, don't leave. Probably like 90, 95.
So I want to talk about the kind of culture remote, the COVID piece, right? I was remote. I was working remote pre-COVID, so it wasn't a huge transition for me. It sounds like
Yep.
you guys were as well. So I'd love for you to talk about just, what are some of the things that were working for you pre-COVID? Because I
Yep.
think in a scrambling environment where you're trying to make everything work, it's hard to figure out that culture. But you had something working before, so you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we were, I guess, lucky. We were always remote. We basically have a Seattle studio, and so people who live around Seattle can come in and use it. In our world, we were hiring a lot of creative minded people, and we found the one ingredient creatives want is to control where and when they want to work. So we just built the culture around that. And so what has worked for us, I think number one thing has been we run the company on trimesters, which is a little bit unusual. So think of it as 4-month chunks. We found 90 days, if that's your cadence, is too fast. Because by the time the team sets some goals, runs it, right, they've only got 8 weeks to do work. The 4 months cadence has been really nice because it gives you, okay, a couple weeks set your goals, a couple weeks to close your trimester, but you have almost 3 months to do some meaningful work. And then we built our offsites around that calendar. So we bring everyone together for a week. So if you look at doing offsites, people get up to this weird, like either it's once a year or twice a year. And so the trimesters has been perfect because we can run 3 offsites a year, bring the whole company together. It's kind of like a check-in reset. We can spend the whole week on the team, right? Process what's working, not working, set new goals. The one breakthrough in remote is that 4-month cadence and then the offsites. And then the offsites is where you get to be vulnerable, talk about things, do it in person. So all the cultural things really just hit hard for a week every 4 months. It makes the rest of the 4 months pretty chill because people had that week to like, let's really go after what's not working in the culture, what problems do we need to fix, and like our communication is not working, right?
Yeah. What are some things that, so I love that. And I've never heard it done that way. And I think that's spot on for what people actually like solving for what they actually want. What are some of the things in those week long offsites, either, exercises that you've run or just
Yeah.
like findings that you've pulled out that you're like, whoa, like I would have never unearthed this unless we ran it this way?
We have covered it all. Like in the early days, we were covering like what should our HR policy be? Should people be dating? There's always a funny story moment of now they're married, but they originally met at Moment. We were a small team. And it turns out they were dating and they thought we didn't know. And so I ended up running an HR session around should people be dating? I tried to make it the most awkward with 12 people, right? And they're like, of course, that's okay, et cetera. And it was so great. So we've done that kind of range. So people who have been here at the earliest have actually got to create all the culture and the policies and should we have vacations or not and maternity leave, et cetera. All the way through to we run scenarios where we try to teach them like, okay, how do you grow the business? How do you 10x the business or 2x the business? So we teach a lot of fundamentals of revenue and gross margins and what are the drivers to acquire customers. And so now at a little bit larger team, I'd say more of the exercises are that. And then in the week, we spend a lot of time on we do some simple things. What's working and build a list, let people give props. Like it's a good chance to, congratulate each other. And then we have kind of a list of what's broken. It could be inside the teams, what we need to fix. And you always get insights out of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I find like if you can find the creative people and give them some business fundamentals, like look out, that person's going to be so valuable. So that's a great process.
And it forces you to teach too. That's the thing at the benefit of it, right? So if you're like, look, I get this team for a week, I only get them 3 weeks a year. You really think about the week and like what you want to do and what's important to get out of it and make sure that you teach, right? And so that's an also way to think of it as you're running a leading group of people. You get basically 3 weeks a year to really focus on them. And so I think the quality is also higher because you realize, man, I only get 3 weeks to actually work with this team.